Hi, this is Dr. Carol Francis, and this is class number 4 about rebuilding and reconstructing yourself. Now, this is a really important response that I want you to have whenever you go into these horrible memories and moments, because those horrible memories and moments will potentially just deflate your energy. You'll feel depressed, maybe exhausted by the anxiety or the panic, or you'll feel so discouraged that you feel like you've regressed again, that you're not making progress. And remember, progress is a cycle. So, you may feel very deflated. You may feel exhausted. So first off, if you feel exhausted after you've gone through one of these reenactments inside yourself, your body, your mind, your emotions, your brain have reenacted this experience on one level or another. If you go into a state of exhaustion, the first thing I want you to think of is about rebuilding your body. And I want you to totally take into consideration whether or not you are getting an adequate amount of sleep, whether or not you are getting the right amount of nutrition. Are you taking supplements if you don't feel hungry? Are you eating hydrating foods that have lots of good roughage, that have good nutrition and vitamins and minerals? That would be fruits and vegetables. Are you eating proteins? So that would be animal products or some sort of vegetarian or vegan combination of foods that gives you a lot of strength for your muscles and your stamina, for your blood sugar to even out. Is your blood sugar being kept even? I want you to go to look at that. Are you exercising at least 20 minutes of what I call sweaty movement, and potentially building your muscles for about at least 5 minutes of every day, potentially, but at least every other day. These things are all about rebuilding and reconstructing your body. Sleep may be very evasive for you, but there are different ways in which you can actually try to get sleep. I'm going to give you just a few supplements for all of these, not because I'm a nutrition counselor or a nutritionist, I should say. I have a certification in nutrition, so I can give you information. You have to take the information, actually investigate to see whether or not it fits what it is that would be good for you. So something that rebuilds and reconstruct people when they've had a lot of depression and anxiety are those builders of serotonin and dopamine in the body. That would include things like GABA and 5-HTP. And there are other supplements as well. Those are both very natural in the body, but when you've had a lot of stress, they're not as available necessarily. They're not in the right proportions, or they're not being utilized in the way that's really helpful. So those GABA and 5-HTP have been seen to be helpful. For some people, SAMe, St. John's wort are really great, but there are also negative sides to those too for some people, but not for other people. And you want to go and research this online and say, well, what helps me with my serotonin and my dopamine? In other words, your neurotransmitters. Another aspect about your body is your adrenal systems. So we think about the adrenal system as being exhausted by a lot of junk food, or a lot of caffeine, or a lot of excessive time not sleeping, or overworking. Your adrenals just get overcharged. But also stress, abuse, trauma really moves us into overdoing our adrenals. And so you want to go and find out what builds up my adrenaline system, my adrenals, so that I can rebuild my body's tolerance level. There are also some sort of supplements that really do help with the accumulation of cortisol. Now, cortisol is not all bad. It's very helpful. You want to have it so that in those really intense moments, you have the resources, your body has the resources to respond in that emergency. There's also some indication that cortisol might even be helpful in the long run for certain people in certain times in certain ways. Complex research, very interesting, fairly new in the world of understanding cortisol and abuse and trauma. But there's also these supplements that seem to kind of relax the presence of cortisol. And one of the ones that I found that was fascinating, because it was used for a reduction of belly fat. That's the way they finally sold it. It was called Relacor. And Relacor has GABA and 5-HTP and some proprietary blends in it. And what I discovered is that it actually does something in the shifting of the cortisol. Well, I'm going to ask you to research that, because there are all sorts of different Relacors out there now, and they may or may not be appropriate for you. but it is something to consider. And what's nice to know about these sorts of things is that they're there to help you. And I haven't even gotten into the psychotropic drugs that might be helpful for you. It may mean that for a period of time, you need something that is a chemical, a pharmaceutical chemical that's going to help you ease off. When people just keep feeling anxious all the time, they never give themselves a break. They never give a chance to themselves to rebuild or to reconstruct their lives. They're just always responding to the anxiety. And so sometimes when those pharmaceuticals are very quickly introduced, we have found that that quick introduction into a post-abuse, a post-trauma response actually settles the system, the body, into not having the continuation of a trauma response. So that the chemicals are kept fairly balanced, your ability to cope is kept there as well, and you may feel kind of checked out and numbed, but you're not reenacting the trauma over and over again. So that's another thing to consider, and you may need to talk to an experienced psychiatrist to be able to consider if that would be a help for you or not. Some of the professionals we've talked to here are going to be psychiatrists, so you might want to check some of their comments out as well in some of the videos. But for now, just consider if that's a part of the rebuilding and the reconstructing. Also, it's really important that you sleep. We know that when you don't sleep, your brain suffers terribly. Your whole body suffers. Your growth hormones are compromised. Your production of a wonderful chemical, melatonin, is completely reduced. It just is. I mean, there are days to be really excited and not sleep very much, but when you're constantly interrupted in your sleep because of anxiety responses, it really does compromise your whole ability to build, rebuild, and reconstruct yourself. So you also may need help with that as well. Now, exercise helps with that, but not necessarily exercise before you go to bed. Melatonin has been helpful for some individuals as well. Some of the sleep pharmaceuticals are helpful. You have to be a little careful because those can move you into a cycle of relying on them as opposed to relying on your own ability to fall asleep. But again, you want to start getting as much sleep as you can, as soon as you possibly can, just to be able to give your body and your mind a break. This is all about rebuilding and reconstructing yourself. Now, there's another aspect. It's not just about the body, right? Because what I just talked about was reconstructing your neurotransmitters for your brain and your body, reconstructing your nutrition and your health and your strength for all of your body's response, your adrenal system, your cortisol levels, your ability to engage in all the chemical processes that are there when you are sleeping. So that's your body. Now, you also want to rebuild your self-esteem. The sad thing about having survivor's guilt, I survived, they didn't, I should have helped them more, that's regret, oh, why did I do what I did, why me, not them, these questions that every survivor of a collective group trauma asks themselves. It's normal. Well, the question is, why you? You might want to reframe that, right? That was that previous R, reframe it, and then construct in your life a series of different things that you do specifically that are about you helping other people. Maybe don't occupy your whole life with this, but maybe for 15 minutes a day, you go and you help someone just to help them across the street, help them with groceries, walk a dog. You just know that I'm going to be helping someone. And that rebuilds that sense of self-esteem that you are a person who wants to help. You've learned that you want to be of assistance to others. And maybe you also convert your experience into something that helps in bigger ways as well. But you want to kind of regroom and rebuild your sense of you are a good person and you can be even a better person. That the abuser and the person who initiated the trauma is the one that really needs to hold the guilt and the blame and the shame, the embarrassment of it all. And you're actually catapulting yourself into some psychological conflict that you need to work through. There's no question. And that's a part of the rebuilding and restructuring as well. But this is a simple way of kind of building up your self-esteem. I do know that I do what's called reconstructive therapy. This is an old phrase from, I would say, the 70s, where we talked about reconstructive therapy, where we would take a person who went through the developmental process in a way that was broken, And we go back and we try to take the steps over again, now this time in a constructive sort of way. And that is the reenactment of the relationship between the therapist and the client. And that's called reconstructive therapy. So that's built on that idea. There's also types of therapies and therapeutic moments you can have where you can build yourself up, the self-talk you use. If you're in the process of harming yourself, self-harm, or beating yourself up, or saying really foul and awful things to yourself out of this kind of intense self-hatred, you need to reframe, you need to restate something very different inside of your mind, replacing that self-harm statement, another R, right? Replacing that self-harm statement with mantras that really boost you up as a human being. Okay, well, we'll be talking more about that in the future, but that's a little bit about being able to rebuild yourself and reconstruct. So while you do the knowledge gain, you're going to be thinking about the information you gained here, but also what information was pertinent specifically to where you are today. And every time you feel deflated and down and overwhelmed, rest. Then replenish yourself, another R, replenish yourself, and then think about how you're going to build yourself up, your self-esteem, your body, your mind, your liking of who you are, your confidence in yourself. Okay? See you in the next class. Bye.